It hasn't been a typical day for an older adult living in North Simcoe, Muskoka for months. With COVID-19 leaving many seniors alone in their homes and with visiting being restricted in hospitals, long-term care homes, and in retirement homes. Loneliness and social isolation for our aging population is sadly nothing new, but the pandemic is making it worse. 1 in 5 Canadians, mainly older adults, experience some degree of loneliness. In those over 85 years, the rate of loneliness is as high as 25%.
We had troubles with social isolation and loneliness in our older adults long before COVID-19, and I fear that we're going to have trouble with that after.
The North Simcoe Muskoka Specialized Geriatric Services Program, working in partnership with Waypoint Centre for Mental Health Care, supports older adults and their care partners to better manage challenges like cognitive impairment and other mental health issues.
Concern about depression and anxiety is growing as this COVID-19 pandemic drags on, and a question is raised. Do these symptoms always need medication? And what's contributing to depression and anxiety? Answers to these questions help us understand how to manage these symptoms. So it's correct that it is the feeling of loneliness rather than the quantity of social isolation that has the negative impact on mental health, physical health, and even healthcare utilization. And it's important to remember that it is perceived loneliness over a long time that is studied.
Social isolation is a global concern amid COVID-19, with concerns that this will lead to declining mental health in those most vulnerable.
For many folks, those routines have been disrupted, going out to coffee groups or drop-in social groups like they normally participated in, or day programs if they did that. All of those things have stopped or ended or have changed forms. So it can be a harder time for somebody who is living with dementia.
Here's how loneliness and social isolation can affect physical health, early mortality, stroke, elevated blood pressure, and malnutrition. It can also affect mental health with depression, risk of suicide, or even substance misuse.
So in yourself, or if you're a caregiver, look for the core features of a major clinical depression, and that includes a sustained sadness or depression over time. It includes a lack of interest in doing things, not just apathetic, but actually not enjoying. It includes worse appetite, an increase or decrease in sleep, things like that. It also, in the older adult, includes irritability and what we call somatic preoccupation, or a preoccupation with physical symptoms, more and more consumed and complaining about physical stuff. That's a huge feature. So look for that through these times.
Some people, when you're faced with a high stress situation, you might turn to different coping strategies that perhaps aren't as helpful to your overall health and wellness. So sometimes we looked at self-medicating with over-the-counter medication or prescription drugs or alcohol. And in many cases for the older adult, those types of medications, for lack of a better word, can actually lead to increased confusion.
During this period of high stress and social or physical isolation, the caregiver may also see periods of loneliness or even depression.
And so for those caregivers, it is difficult to help support somebody who's living with loneliness. And in fact, that can contribute to you feeling isolated and therefore you feeling lonely. And so it is so important as caregivers that you still maintain some of your social connections. Perhaps again by phone, being involved in those groups that have formerly always been a support to you. Those things are still really important things to tap into.
Social isolation has a similar impact on mortality as smoking and alcohol misuse. It exceeds the risks associated with obesity and inactivity.
There are so many ways in which we can all combat loneliness. Starting even firstly with maintaining good daily routines, setting goals, setting small goals. So I'm going to get up every day at 9 a.m. and I'm going to start off the day with a healthy breakfast. Getting outside, getting some activities.
So reach out to your social community by phone or by video conferencing virtually. That means that computers and cell phones these days have cameras and have the capacity to create video conferencing so you can see the person as you talk to them. If you don't know how to do this, ask. Your family could help you with this. I always say ask the younger generation because they all know this stuff, because it allows you to reach out and fight against the isolation by keeping a social connectedness. And that's exquisitely important during this time.
So all the supports that somebody would have accessed prior to COVID are still there, albeit a little bit in a different form. So when I think of our services at the Alzheimer's Society, we've moved all of our options online or through telephone. So for somebody who used to receive supportive counseling through our services, a lot of that was done over telephone pre-COVID. So that's still happening. And now people have the option of having virtual visits. Our support groups are being offered online, as well as all of our education and social rec programs.
Social engagement is an important part of life for everybody. At this time, our usual way of touching, hugging, and engaging has changed. For many older adults, these changes, coupled with increased social isolation, are threatening their health and sense of well-being. As the world begins to reopen, the North Simcoe Muskoka Specialized Geriatric Services hopes the new normal includes a better appreciation of the impact of social isolation and loneliness on people's health. They also hope that people will make a conscious effort to spend more time with our older population.